Okay, we're going to finally work. There we go. All right. I just want to give my thoughts about the Greenland and Panama sell to America, or this idea that Trump has been trying to push about Greenland and the Panama Canal being taken over by the United States, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. So, opening. Forge gang! I am still a heart man. Let's go! All right, so I'm Imperator Forge. You know who I am. You know what this is about. So let's just get into it. So, Panama was separated from the Republic of Colombia in 1902, 1901, with U.S. backing, and Teddy Roosevelt opened up this canal zone. It was based on earlier British and French projects in the 19th century to try to create a canal zone to shorten the route around Argentina and Chile in the Cape, well, the south of South America, anyways, and they wanted a shorter route. So Teddy Roosevelt did a works program, and he did one of the major industrial things. And by 1914, the Panama Canal Zone was opened up, and America controlled the Panama Canal Zone, and it was run and organized directly by the United States. And it allowed for easier and faster marine commercial route trafficking through Panama, the state of Panama, between the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean. And it was very successful. It worked. 1979, 1978, under the Jimmy Carter administration, the Panama Zone was given back to the Republic of Panama. The United States would continue to fund the infrastructure and the maintenance of the canal, but it was now under Panamanian control. And President Donald Trump wants to buy back or potentially even use direct military force to take back the canal zone. I personally oppose this idea. I think it would be expensive and very costly to American finance and to American stuff. Also, it goes back to a outdated racist concept known as imperialism and colonialism. This idea that you can just go anywhere in the world you want to, and you can just take whatever you want and take its resources if you're the first civilization to claim it. This is the 21st century. This just isn't going to work. Also, all it would do is just raise taxes, and it would be an unnecessary maintenance of the U.S. military. It would be a waste of resources. It would just be a waste of things, and there's just no point in trying to own something that should belong to another country's property, which is Panama. So I think the canal zone should stay in Panamanian control. The lease, the 99 100-year lease, has already since been expired in 1999. That's when it expired. It was already given back in the 70s by Jimmy Carter anyways, so there's no point in even really considering it. Instead, what should be done is build a canal system in the United States. Like, how about fixing the roads and the internal infrastructure in the U.S. itself? America already stretches from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans and the Gulf of Mexico to begin with, and Alaska borders the Arctic Ocean. So why not try to build like a super speed a high-speed rail system through the USA? Why not focus on doing that instead of wasting unnecessary amounts of resources and materials to conquer the Panama Canal Zone? Waste of time and waste of effort. Donald Trump, well, you know what? I'll save that for a bit. So, complete waste of resources, complete waste of time. It's based on an outdated concept of colonialism and imperialism, and this idea that Panamanians, because they're a poor third world country, they are incapable of maintaining something as high-tech or as developed as the Panama Canal. Complete waste of time, complete waste of effort and resources. The lease has already expired anyways, and like, you can't, maybe you could do a treaty with Panama and try to, like, maybe, I don't know, either create a new lease or send money for maintenance. But like, Panama already lets America send commerce through the canal zone to begin with. Okay, America already has a highly favorable position to use the canal. You don't need to buy the canal or conquer the state of Panama to do it. So, another stupid idea from Donald Trump. Anyways, let's go to Greenland. So Greenland is this gigantic frozen iceberg that's in the North Atlantic. It sits between Labrador, Nova Scotia, and Canada, and Iceland. It's way up there by the Arctic. The capital is Nuuk. Greenland is not an independent country. Instead, it is a royal dominion of the Kingdom of Denmark. There is a department of Greenland that is represented in the Danish Parliament in Copenhagen. So that's just some little trivial stuff about Greenland. Greenland was originally settled by Inuit and Eskimo peoples, and they lived there for 2,000 years. The Norse Vikings settled in Greenland, and Norwegians, Icelanders, and Norse people from the Isle of Man and from the Hebrides and the Faroe and the Shetland Islands, the Faroes and Iceland and stuff, and they settled in Greenland for a couple of hundred years. By 1400, they died off because of disease and stuff. Then in the 1700s, the Danish government sent colonists, or actually, they didn't send colonists. There's nothing particularly about Greenland that's really worth colonizing because it's completely frozen. But some Norwegian fishermen and Danish missionaries and Danish settlers went to Greenland. They founded Nuuk. And in 1980, or like about 1980-85, Greenland became a dominion, or like sort of a dominion zone within Denmark. Iceland itself used to have a kingdom or royal status under Denmark before it became independent. Anyways, Greenland is this dominion zone, and Donald Trump, in his stupid, utter verbatim nonsense, thinks that he's going to conquer this frozen iceberg in the North Atlantic that's like nobody wants. First of all, the United States has a very perfect position to begin with when it comes to stationing troops or using Iceland or Greenland as kind of way stations for the Navy, or sending troops around the world, particularly in the Atlantic, because of issues with Russia, or like problems and issues in regards to the Russian Federation and its imposing position in the Arctic Ocean with submarines and all of that goes on. You don't really need to buy Greenland. Most people in Greenland don't even want to be annexed to the U.S. Denmark, I think, is indifferent to it, but they would prefer not to sell it. So already you have an unfavorable position when it comes to getting Greenland. You can use it, Alaska. North Alaska is the perfect place that you can use to do kind of missions and stuff into the Arctic. It is possible that there are some gasoline stuff under the Arctic tundra in Greenland, but it would be very hard to get to. It would be very difficult to extract that oil and gas, natural gas. It would be quite difficult to do it, given the climate and the lack of building material and just the difficulty of actually getting it up into Greenland. The maintenance and the tax revenue and tax incentives of trying to pay for and to maintain this would be very costly. It would be very costly to the U.S. military forces to go to Greenland and to do this stuff. It would be a waste of time. Instead, what they could do is they could lease land in Greenland to try to frack out oil and gas or extract gasoline. If they want to do that, you don't have to necessarily conquer or purchase an entire place that nobody really lives to begin with. It's just polar bears and igloos and stuff. And it's like, why do you want this land? What value does it really have? It would be a stupid idea. Most Greenlanders don't want to become part of the United States anyways. There's lots of places in the world that probably would want to become part of the United States, but Panama and Greenland are not them. It would be very costly and unnecessary to purchase that stuff to begin with. So anyways, also Trump wants to try to economically conquer Canada. You know, it's not like 90% or 80% of Canada's population lives right at their southern border with the US to begin with. It's not as if Toronto and Vancouver already trade directly with the states that they border to begin with in the United States. And it's not like Canada is already halfway economically forced to concede with NAFTA to the US to begin with. Oh no, but Donald Trump thinks that Canada is like this place that needs to be annexed to the United States. Well, first of all, there needs to be a vote. There needs to be a vote of Canadians themselves if they want to agree to become part of the United States. I'll tell you right now that Canadians, they're a completely different species. They're a whole nother set of species to begin with. Their mannerisms, the way that they think and look at the environment and gun rights and homosexuality and integration, all of that stuff, very different mindset. They don't even really have an army. Like, the Canadian Armed Forces is kind of a joke. Their economy, their population is actually falling down. In spite of the immigration, and that's been a nightmare for Canadians, the immigration stuff. But their population is going down, and if America were to annex Canada, it would be an absolute, you would inherit all of Canada's problems, and it would be a burden on the United States economy. America is much better off just leaving Canada as it is. Yeah. So I got my sources from Peter Zeihan. He was talking about some of this stuff. And I know that he's a chosen. I get it. But still, I got my resources from him. So bottom line, Donald Trump is not a conservative. I don't know where people get this idea that Donald Trump is a Christian conservative. He's not. Really, The guy is a 1980s Democrat under the garb of being a 2020s Republican. Politics is just so gay. Like, politics is just flamboyantly redundant and just a waste of time and effort. Trump is going to do a great job at really just, on the one hand, just making a fool of himself, making a fool of Americans abroad. Really, honestly, I don't think that people really care abroad either way about it. Like, Americans are just going to make fools of themselves, just like in the Bush and Barack Obama years. Nothing is going to change. Nothing ever really does change to begin with, because we always elect the worst type of people, the dumbest, most stupidest, talentless, tactless people that you could imagine. And it's always baby boomers. Like, the last 30 years, it's just been baby boomers. And they don't know anything about how to run politics. Baby boomers can't even run a trust fund, much less could they run a country. Just put it that way. And like, America would do, you want to know my opinion about this? America would be way better off not trying to make an ass of itself and go around and trying to police the world. Instead, try to not conquer its neighbors, and Canada would be a burden on the US system. I've talked to Canadians. I've talked with plenty of Canadians. I've never really talked to a Panamanian or to a Greenlander, but Canadians are not having a good time up there in the cold north, laying in their igloos and eating polar bear meat and whatever they do up there in the North Pole. Annexing Canada would be a burden on the American economy. Like, it would be more. Also, it would be a waste of resources. All of the men that you would have to station up there in Quebec, Montreal, and Toronto, and Vancouver City, all the money and resources that would be wasted trying to do that, like, no. Plus, Canada is a friendly neighbor to the United States. Canada is probably the longest friendly ally that the United States has ever had. There has been no war since 1815. That's 200 years of peace. And then now you just want to invade that country? Like, no. You don't do that. So, this is another example of stupid ideas from Trump. Trump is a Grinch. Trump is the Grinch. Like, Donald Trump really is the Grinch. He really is the green guy, the Grinch, from, how the Grinch Stole Christmas. Donald Trump is a rich guy that grew up in wealth and grew up in flamboyance, never fought in the U.S. military, just basically got elected because he told a bunch of confused Zoomers, that he was going to be their messiah. And Nick Fuentes was dumb enough to believe it, and Nick Fuentes and his boys voted for Trump. And you see the results. Nothing that Trump does is going to have any semblance of anything to do with Nick Fuentes or Andrew Tate. I don't think Andrew Tate is American. Or Andrew Anglin. And Andrew Anglin and Nick Fuentes threw all their energy out. Get Trump elected. He's going to be the new Hitler. He's going to revitalize America. And, twice, these idiots were dumb enough to vote for this fucker twice. And then they find out that he's a 1980s Democrat baby boomer, product of the baby boomer 1968 generation counterculture. And they find out what Trump is all about. And I knew this from the beginning, but you Zoomers and younger millennials wouldn't listen to me or listen to people that had common sense. Well, that's fine. So enjoy your president. You already had sleepy boy Joe Biden in office. Now you're going to have the guy that calls himself Mr. I'm going to make America great again. Well, he's going to make America great again for big business. He's going to make America great again for big business conglomerates, okay? He doesn't care about the average American. He doesn't care about whether you go to jail or not because you weren't able to pay a fine because you barely are able to pay your bills and get groceries. Fuck no. All right, so I gave my thoughts. Bottom line, Panama Canal Zone, leave it as it is. Don't go there into a third world country and try to grab up something that's already effectively working and functional, and you have an advantage in trade deficits to begin with. In concern with Greenland, let Denmark have it. Denmark is supposedly one of the closest allies because Denmark is in NATO and the EU. Like, you don't want to be pissing off the Europeans, okay? They're already in a bad enough position with their economy and demographics as it is. Greenland is a frozen iceberg in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Whether it's under Danish or American or NATO control, it's still under NATO. Greenland is still part of NATO. They're going to let us lease their bases to the U.S. military. What are you trying to do with trying to get Greenland? Complete waste of time, complete waste of resources. Okay, the age of imperialism is over with. We don't need a frozen iceberg. It's not going to make America any better than it already is. It's not going to solve any problems back here at home. When it comes to Canada, like, you really want to inherit the Canadian problems and bring it into the American market. Like, you don't want to touch Canada. They've got enough troubles as it is. Let them have their problems up there. Let them have their igloos and polar bears. We have Alaska. That's all we need up there in the north. Let's move on. Donald Trump, you stupid idiot. I'm now going to read the comments. So we have Rick Perry. Forgin Rick Perry's in the chat. He says, I am such a hard nut. And we got Mr. Officer in the chat saying that his parents support the annexation / purchase of Panama and Greenland. Your parents are boomers, dude. They think that it's going to be an economic asset to the U.S. economy, and it's not. It's not going to do anything. Greenland has no people. It has 40,000. There's 60,000 people that live in Greenland, and there's no infrastructure. The capital is Nuuk or something like that. It's just a bunch of indigenous people there. There's hardly any actual Danes that live in Greenland. It's frozen tundra. There might be perhaps some natural gas that's under that frozen tundra somewhere, but it would be hard to get to. A waste of deficit. Panama is just a bunch of rainforest and tropics and stuff, and like frogs and toads. If you touch the frogs, you get poisoned. It like they release their poison glands. It has frogs like that in the rainforest. And like Greenland has been under, I mean, Panama has been under one dictatorship after another, one Cadillo after another. And it's like we already invaded Panama in 1989. The U.S. did. I don't know if you're American or not, but America invaded Panama and overthrew a dictator, and then it just all went to hell. It was just run. It's controlled. Panama is controlled by cartels. There's a bunch of drug money and drugs that go through there from Colombia up to the U.S., and it's run by the cartels. And the Panamanian Canal is already sort of under American control anyways to begin with. America has favorable trade dominance in Panama, as does Great Britain, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, etc. A waste of time and a waste of money and resources to manage that. I would never support the annexation of those places. Like, let the cartels and let the polar bears have it. Now we have Rick Perry saying that he is Chris Benoit pilled. Chris Bennett pilled. I don't know who that is. Rick Perry says that he genuinely sees very little difference between the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United States of America, Commonwealth of Australia, Dominion of New Zealand, and the Confederation of Canada. Well, they all speak the same language. They're all completely focused on naval enterprise, naval dominance and acquiescence, and they all inherit the same ideas from Athens and Venice. So, yes, I mean, I think the United States isn't just necessarily entirely a sea or a naval power. Like, there's many different regions in the UK, in the US, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And it's like, not everyone from these countries think the same as the elites. I think that's kind of where you're a bit nearsighted when it comes to these matters. Rick Perry says that Trump would grab my boozy. Okay. I don't know why you had to let us know about that, Rick Perry. I don't think Trump even knows that you exist, to be honest. Rick Perry says there's most probably already substantial deep underground military bases in Greenland already. Well, I wasn't coming on here to talk about the deep state, UFOs, and like the existence of UFO bases or like some kind of stuff like that. I was just talking about my thoughts about what I discussed already in the stream. But Greenland would be a wasted priority for the United States to begin with. But this government is incompetent. Americans just don't run a good government. Americans are just incompetent. We're an incompetent bunch of buffoons, and the rest of the world just laughs at us, and I see it. Meaning NATO already effectively owns it. That's what I meant. That's why I don't see why Greenland needs to be directly put under the United States control. America already was occupying Greenland during World War II, when Denmark was under occupation by the Germans to begin with. So I don't see what good it would do to have Greenland. Anyways, I got my point through. I'm Imperator of Forge. You have a good one. Forge!